Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to our Pacific Standard Time team. Appreciate everyone jumping on today. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about scaling bid throughput, how smart contractors are doubling their bidding capacity with AI in 2025. I'm your host, Sean Prince, VP of Enterprise Experience here at Attentive AI. Most estimating teams hit a ceiling. There's simply not enough time in the day to do quality takeoffs and bid on every job that's worth chasing. And so you can't grow your business if you can't bid more work. So today we're going to show you what smart contractors are doing differently with AI-led tech in the fold. And I think that's really important to think about what they're doing differently, right? Staying status quo is not really a choice any further. So we have with us a powerhouse panel of industry leaders to share real-world insights on what high-performing teams are doing differently. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in just a minute. But first, just a couple housekeeping items from an agenda perspective. We're going to spend, like we always do, about 40 or 45 minutes in conversation with our panelist group, talking through the industry tech side of things and our specific topic today. In that conversation, we're going to have a couple polls that pop up. And so we'd love for you to interact with us on those polls. I'll read them out. You'll have a couple different choices. Would love for you to engage with us there specifically. Also, at the end of our panelist conversation, we're going to have some time for some Q&A. Usually it's about 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to spend some time taking questions from you, the attendees, to our panelists. So if we're talking through a specific question or one of the panelists say something that really rings a bell and you want to go deeper on, make sure to just pop that question in the chat there. We have a Q&A box at the bottom. You can just pop it in the chat and we'll make sure to try to get to as many as we can towards the end of the conversation. So I want to make sure we maximize our conversation time with this great panel group today. I'm going to ask them to do a quick intro, and then we'll get into our first topic. So Chris, would love for you to introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you, Sean. My name is Chris Palmer. I'm the founder and CEO of TradeTech. We're a full-service software company focused on anything construction. That could be contractors, GCs, distribution companies, really providing streamlined business processes, addressing whatever pain points you face on a day-to-day basis in your business.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And we'll make sure to share Chris's information and TradeTech's information towards the end of our webinar if you'd like to get in touch with Chris and work with Chris directly. So thank you for being here, Chris. Peter, would love for you to introduce yourself next.
Hi, I'm Peter Smedberg, owner/operations manager of Axion Specialty Contracting and Energy Installation. We're based in the Northeast with offices in Foxborough, Mass, Maine, Indiana, and just 2 or 3 other ones. But been in construction for 35 years and managing for the better part of 30 of them.
Awesome. Thank you for being here with us today, Peter, and looking forward to hearing a lot of that wisdom of your 35 years here in the industry. So thank you for being here again. Shikhar, would like you to introduce yourselves and then we'll get going.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Hi, everyone. My name is Shikhar. I'm Chief Product Officer here at Beam AI. I'm the one with the least amount of experience in the construction world. But yeah, glad to be here on this panel. I work closely with our product and engineering teams while build Beam AI, which is our fully automated AI-based takeoff platform used by a variety of GCs, subs, and suppliers to automate their takeoffs and bid more. Glad to be able to connect and join today. Thanks so much.
Awesome, Shikhar. Thank you. Your humbleness precedes yourself. I know you've got a wealth of knowledge here to pour into the industry as well. So thank you again for being here. All right, let's get started. Question 1. Chris, would love to come to you first on this, right? And just get your take on it. But the idea behind this is, why subcontractors hit a ceiling. So let's start with you specifically, Chris. In your work with subcontractors, what are some of the most common bottlenecks that limit how many bids teams can actually get out the door specifically?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind. When I work with construction companies, in particular estimators, what we find is they're not just doing estimating. They have multiple roles, right? So they're doing project management. They're out in the field building relationships, golfing with clients, all those types of things. And so that oftentimes can take them away from doing their takeoffs. And then the other thing is, right, bid volume isn't consistent. So there's times where bid volume spikes and they're pushing through the weekends, late hours, really just to get those bids done. So that's really what comes to mind.
I would say, Chris, if I had to rely on my golf game to win jobs, I wouldn't be winning too many jobs. But I certainly understand. Like, just a lot of different things that can be happening in an estimator's world. And then, what's your take on the takeoff time? Right? It's always been my experience. I haven't necessarily been in the general construction or subcontractor space, but more on the landscape construction side. In that world, the takeoff took a bulk of the time to actually build the estimate. What are your thoughts on just the time that it actually takes to do a takeoff? You still there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good deal.
Pete,
I think we
did
had
you?
a little connection issue there. Pete, we'll move over to you. Anything additional that you would maybe add to, from an operational lens that Chris had mentioned?
I think Chris hit it right on the head, but and I'm going to go from my company's standpoint or how we look at things. We do have majority of our estimators are / project managers, and we do have some just in-house estimators. So the streamlining that you've developed has added more time for my project managers / estimators to get more time, maybe not so much golfing, but more time out in the field, being more hands-on, getting their change orders and stuff done in a timely manner.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I've actually seen that. I've been on the road a lot here in August and September and been with a lot of different customers in the construction space. And it seems like that estimator / project manager hybrid role is fairly common. And it seems like all the conversations lead to, how do we get them more time out in the field with the customer and with the team, less time behind the desk. So it's good to get that operational lens from you, Peter. It sounds like you guys were working through that as well there at Axion.
Correct.
Awesome. Great. So, Shikhar, I'd love to come to you. Let's talk a little bit about redefining the estimator role. I've seen this happening, over the past 2 to 3 years where I've been on the technology side, but would love to get your perspective on it. Traditionally, estimators have been really, some might say, like the takeoff engine of the company, but that seems to be starting to shift. So in your mind, Shikhar, as the CPO of Attentive, what are some of the smartest teams, or how are some of the smartest teams redefining that role of an estimator?
Thank you, Sean, for that question. I think that's a great question and ties closely to what Peter and Chris have already briefly talked about. I believe there's a fundamental shift that's happening in the industry, in the estimating space. We're privileged to be working with some of the largest contractors in US and Canada, and get to speak with so many of the them day in, day out. And the smartest teams, the ones that are ahead of the curve when it comes to adopting technology, especially like AI, which is the fundamental shift is that previously, in fact, so many of the estimators right now are still considered to be the takeoff engine. So a lot of their time is spent on counting and measuring off of plans. And this process itself is the bottleneck, because on average, you're able to push through maybe 3 or 4 bids out every week. But what these smart companies that are adopting AI deliberately and making it their habit, they're able to reposition the estimators as not takeoff engines, but as strategic bid managers, right? So 80 to 90% of the work that you were previously doing, which is measuring and counting, can now be automated with AI. And as a strategic bid manager, you're focused on validating that AI output quickly, and then all the time that you save, you focus on taking the judgment that only an experienced estimator can make. You're looking at edge cases. You're focused on value engineering. You're focused on building relationships with GCs, positioning yourself as the right partner to that GC, right? And as a net result, if you were pushing out 3 to 5 bids a week, you're now able to push out 8 to 10 bids a week per estimator. It's like when GPS came around. Before GPS, all of us, we were learning routes, flipping through map books, and it was harder to get from place A to B, especially if you're in a new city. But as GPS came around, you just enter the start and the end location, and the software automatically, finds the best route. That doesn't mean we don't have drivers anymore. We still do, but it allows drivers to be relaxed, to focus more on safety, to focus more on drive quality instead of being constantly worried about the fact that, hey, am I on the right route? So that's what I feel is happening in the industry. From takeoff engine, you're becoming a strategic bid manager. You're becoming a strategic advisor, and you are able to make more and more qualified calls on the job, instead of just being in the rut of measuring and just pumping out bids.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Shikhar. And I think a lot of times we talk about how AI can help us do more. I think sometimes what we miss, and probably what I personally miss a lot, is how AI can help us do more, but do it better, right, than what we did before. So, your example of getting, 3 to 5 bids out a week, Shikhar, not only are you able to maybe move that needle to 8 to 10 a week, whatever your number might be based on your company, but it sounds like what you're saying too is it's allowing that estimator to be more invested in the details of those estimates that are being built and focus on value engineering, edge cases, all the different components that typically, from my experience, have been left to last minute. Is that the truth? Is that truthful in your mind?
Absolutely, Sean. We speak with estimators, and the key complaint is that, hey, I just don't have enough time to focus on these essential elements of pricing a job. And if you look at a bid cycle, a typical 2 week bid cycle, you're not bidding a job in silos. You're bidding probably 3 or 4 jobs at once, which have very close bid due dates. So there's a lot of context switch that happens, which leads to lack of focus. But that cannot be a reason why you didn't price a job competitively, because you're going to lose out to your competitor. So anything that helps you increase your focus while also maintaining or increasing the number of bids, because you want to grow, you want to send out more bids, right? That math is still true and will be true. So anything that helps you increase focus, which AI can, because it just allows you to become it multiplies your force. You can do more in less amount of time, which gives you more time for things that require judgment.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Appreciate that detail there. All right, let's pull up our first poll. Would love for the audience to participate in this with us. So how many bids are you losing due to your bidding process in a month? So we have a couple answers here that you can select from: 2 to 4, 4 to 10, 10 plus. So how many bids are you losing due to your bidding process in a month? So it's an interesting question because a lot of those bid processes could look very different from company to company, trade to trade, subcontractor to subcontractor, and varying levels of numbers there. But would love for you to join us in on this poll before we move on to our next topic. All right, let's take a look at the feedback we got on the poll here. Okay, looks like we're pretty evenly split here between 2 to 4, 4 to 10. Makes sense, makes pretty sense. Law of averages there, 2 to 4 or 4 to 10 on the bid side. Appreciate you guys participating in that. And please remember, we do have the Q&A box down below. If we're talking through something and you want to go a little bit deeper, or a question pops up in your mind, feel free to ask that down in the Q&A box below. All right, let's go on to topic number 3 here, Chris. And I want to come to you first, and then Peter, I'll come back over to you. Let's talk about scale. So, Chris, what have you seen? What have you seen when teams embrace automation, or specifically AI? Are they doing more with less? Are they having trouble adopting? Is it a slow start? Give us your feedback there.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sean. So yeah, I think that I'll come at this in a couple different directions. One thing is, with AI, it allows companies to scale geographically. So company owners or leadership might be a little hesitant to expand to the adjacent state here in the United States when their estimators are already stretched. And also where what I hear is finding skilled estimators is difficult, right? But with AI, it allows them to punch through that. And in fact, this morning I was on a call with a customer here in the Northeast who that's exactly what he told us. He said, you know what, without AI, I wouldn't have been able to bid on jobs in another state that I've never bid in another state. And so it really allows me to really grow my business in that way. So geographical scale, I'll call it. In terms of adoption, I think there is an adoption to this, right? People are in companies have a way of doing estimating that they've done for a long time. They have built in, I would call them business rules, right? The way they want to see a takeoff done. And so what's really nice about the Beam solution is we're able to build an SOP for each company to really overlay their company specific business rules on the AI. And I think that really helps them, helps really drive through the adoption curve. So those are a few things that I can think of.
It's interesting, Chris, when you mentioned the adoption piece, it sounds like there's some work, and not even necessarily just related to AI takeoffs, but technology and AI in general. I know you deal with this every day, every week, right? It sounds like what you're saying too is that it's not a set it and forget it. It's more of like there's some front end work to get this, headed the right direction. And then once you have that motion in place and the team is rallied around it, um, maybe it becomes easier. Is that too simplified?
No, I think that's exactly right. I think there's some front loading of that, but there's also continuous learning, right? And feedback loops. So I participate weekly, biweekly, monthly with different clients, getting their feedback, being sure that they're able to fully adopt what they've signed up for, and I feed that back to the Beam team, right? So I think it's the change part of this. It can be quick for some companies. Other companies, when you're dealing with, they got 8, 10 estimators, it can take a little bit of time. But that's why we have the services we do to really help them through that change.
Yeah, no, well said. Peter, would you anything you'd build on that specific to what Chris said, about, how have you seen teams embrace automation or AI, or specifically there at Axion from your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. The estimators at first were very reluctant, worried they're going to lose their jobs. We had to, make the sure reinforce them knowing that we're making your job easier, so you can get out and do some more marketing for the company. No, we didn't get rid of any employees. You could probably do that if you were looking to go that avenue. We weren't. We were looking to grow. In the last year and a half, we expanded from just the Northeast, Rhode Island, Connecticut we were in, to a couple of different markets in upstate New York and out Indiana. And we're looking at another area down the south. And by doing that, we still having our estimators, our core estimators in the Northeast, taking these jobs off as we build our relationships out in the Midwest and upstate New York. And go back to Chris had mentioned earlier, I know this contractors in Northeast, Northeast, and we don't travel that far, but he does. He's from up there, and he joined up, and he was just saying yesterday that there's a large project up there that he would have never bid because he just didn't have time, and he ran it through AI. And I don't know if he gets the job yet or not. We didn't bid it, but he was like, there was no way he was ever going to get to that project without the help of AI.
Yeah, no, that's great insight there, Peter. And I think, to what Chris said about the geographical expansion, sounds like it's helped, Axion even almost like centralize their estimating a little bit, where they're doing other geographic areas with the same team. And I think that's one of the things I want to hammer home with our attendees, right? we talked at the very onset of the webinar, like how smart contractors are thinking differently. And one of the things we try to bring to the Build Up series is how to be better inside your specific industry. This is very key. I see this with all the companies that we talk with that are customers of Beam, that have adopted quickly and moved forward and become very efficient in what I call their bid or sales velocity. They are thinking differently about how they are doing their estimating process, and that's leading to opportunities to scale. So I think that's very, very well said there, Peter. Shikhar, would you have anything to offer on this side, especially specifically about the teams and how they're adopting? I know you work with a lot of our product development partners directly. Any insights that you would have to offer here?
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. I see this having a twofold benefit. Adopting AI, I think one is, of course, volume. You are able to add more throughput, as simple as that. With the same amount of team members, you can scale without hiring more people. If you were sending out 30 to 40 bids a month, you can now do 50 to 60, probably more, if your appetite allows for the same. So you can scale your volume without hiring more people. And I think to what Chris mentioned, I think the great benefit with AI and adopting AI early is that AI is really flexible with how you do something. And that is a very important part of the puzzle, because when you're adopting new systems, you want a system to essentially adhere to your methods and not change the entire process. AI, if you choose the right product, that is, you're able to customize the solution so that it's able to integrate with your process, and in that because of that, it doesn't cause a disruption. It allows you to scale by introducing AI. So scale is one definite benefit that we have seen, especially with our customers, given our capability to customize our data models, our process, our takeoff processing based on our customers' requirements. But I think one other key benefit that probably doesn't get talked about enough is the flexibility that AI creates, which is again, Peter talked about it, targeting new geographies, being able to go after projects that you would typically not have been able to go after, probably more margin projects. So it's a force multiplier. During the peak period, you are able to smooth out during the peak bid demand, you are able to smooth it out without having to hire more people. And then you have the advantage of choosing which ones to go after, and you can certainly go after more than you could ever, choose to go after previously. So I think flexibility, the ability to be able to take on more, and the ability to take on more jobs, I think those two are the biggest benefits that we are seeing with contractors and suppliers that have been able to adopt AI.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, initially, right, when Beam AI was launched, a lot of our customers, I think, saw it as what you were referring to as Shikhar, right? Like they were leveling out the peaks and valleys in their seasonality, almost like a relief valve, right? And then I think as the products matured and the industry has matured, and honestly, the perception of AI has matured. We still have a long way to go there. But I've seen companies, begin to start to adopt it as their main workflow, because they test it, they start to realize the capabilities, and then it starts to work its way into a mainstream workflow. I think personally, for me, I like equate it to how I use any LLM, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok. When it first came out, November of whatever it was, 2023, I think maybe, I tested it. I might use this. And I know for myself, like it's a daily part of my workflow and one of my main tabs open as well. So I think that's well said, Shikhar. It's definitely transitioned, and obviously from your purview, you're thinking it will continue to transition and take up more and more space in the industry.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you talked about perception there, Sean. I think there is superficially there's this perception that AI is going to replace estimators. and it's all going to come to an end. But not possible. That is not happening. That's not the trend that we are seeing with our customers. None of our customers have downsized their estimating team. As I've said multiple times already on this webinar, it's a force multiplier. Think of it like ATMs, automated teller machines. Before we had ATMs, you used to have a teller whose sole job was to count cash and dispense it to the customer. When the ATM machines came in, the ATMs came in, everyone thought there would be no tellers, right? But the same people, they moved to a higher order service delivery. They were able to provide better service to customers. They transitioned to a more strategic or a higher in the food chain role, right? So that happens with every industry wherever technology brings in a fundamental shift. So that's what we are seeing with our customers as well. Estimators are getting more things done, and I think they're enjoying their role now. They're able to make more strategic calls. They're able to make decisions without the absence of certain data points that they previously won't have. So more information means better decisions. So I think step towards progress, and clearly there's nothing to worry about while we as an industry embrace this new change.
Yeah, Chris, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on this as well. I know Peter mentioned, right, they basically took more of an abundance mindset at Axion, right, where they said, hey, we've got this team, now this team can actually do more rather than reducing headcount. Do you run into, if you think about it from like a mindset standpoint, because maybe I'll add some color to this after your response, but do you see more of an abundance mindset, a scarcity mindset when it comes to technology and AI? I wanted to get your opinion because you're out there working with a lot of different contractors on the tech side.
Yeah, right. Great question. So it is true. I call it the tactical versus strategic view. So some companies that I deal with take the tactical view, which is how do I reduce cost? How do I become more efficient? I think of it as tactical because the strategic view is the abundance. It's how do I grow my business, either do more bids within the current geography I'm dealing with or expand geography, right, to do more bids or do more bids, do more business, more companies. So I really see it that way. It really is, it's almost cultural within companies, right? A lot of the smaller construction companies, probably more on the tactical cost efficiency side. And the larger ones have more of a growth mindset, at least in my experience. I don't want to poo-poo some of the smaller companies that have big growth aspirations, but that's typically what I've seen.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what I see a lot too. Is like it's interesting you mentioned culture because I run into that. You can almost within the first 5 minutes of having a conversation inside of a company, you can understand the type of culture that they have on the technology side. I see it a lot when we go to these conferences and trade shows and we talk to 200 businesses, right, that are in the construction space in a matter of 3 days. You have some that walk up and go, I've got a problem. I hope this can fix it. Let's talk about it. And they have more of that abundance mindset where they're looking to solve a problem. And then you have others that walk up and like prove this can actually help me, and more of that like scarcity mindset. So I would say, if you're out there and you're an owner or a leader in the business today, think about what type of culture you have as well, because I think that plays into how you adopt technology. And I would definitely say one of the largest hurdles I see on a daily basis is adoption and change of technology. And I think it's right now it's a nice to have, but I think eventually it's going to be a have to have from changing technologies and thinking differently. So I think if you're working in your company and taking a more proactive stance, being on the front end of that curve rather than the back end of that curve would certainly be a positive for you in the business. So good takeaway there. Appreciate that. Appreciate you guys speaking into that. Peter would love, this one's for you, GC sub relationships, from a specialty contractor's perspective. What do you think more subs struggle with when it comes to collaborating with larger general contracting firms and potentially suppliers? What role do you feel like, I guess two-part question, what role can tech play in that process to reduce the friction? But any thoughts there?
Well, tech is definitely taking over construction. So my thought process was about 4 or 5 years ago, it's like, we got to get in front of it. And I actually happened to meet Chris from Trade Tech, and we started talking and trying to streamline things easier. Going the paper in the feelers, meaning the T&M tickets and stuff, that's old school stuff. It's going on the wayside. Through Trade Tech, we do tablets. The foremen all have tablets, so they have a chance to do all the T&M tickets. All their time is entered through tablets. I've got a lot of guys that were dead set against running technology in the field because they're used to just writing their hours down and calling the timekeeper or putting their T&M slips in. We have saved an unbelievable amount of money with technology. Our T&M slips get in on a daily basis. We're getting paid that day, if not the next day on site. And that's how it led into AI, because staying up interested in learning on AI, learning about it. And through Bean and you and Chris, this is how I ended up here. It's been a great addition. There's been a few examples of, a month and a half ago, one of my estimators was looking forward to a long weekend, and suddenly there was this this bid that had to be down, and other people were on vacation, and he was still manning the ship, and they weren't going to be back till Monday. It's like, run it through AI, and just check the specs and whatever, and he ended up getting out, and we got the bid out, and it went well. So technology is the way of the future, and our company has embraced it.
Yeah, Peter, you keep us grounded here in this conversation, because so many times our conversation lends itself to, hey, let's do more with this time, let's value engineer. But hey, we've all got personal lives. Simply being able to maybe put it on autopilot and get a day off with your kids or your family is a big win, maybe even more important win as well. So appreciate you sharing that thought there. Chris, I love having this panel because we have Shikhar from the technology and product side. We have, Peter from the specialty contracting side that's out there, doing the work every day. And then you're helping support from a consultant standpoint. Just anything to add to what Peter said there? I know you have a broad purview of customers that you work with. Anything additional from, the role that tech is playing in reducing that friction, and then also, how subcontractors are working with those larger GC firms?
Sure, a couple of things come to mind. One on the supplier side, might seem like a simple example, but it does cause friction. Supplier price catalogs. They issue a price catalog however often, say quarterly, but there's literally thousands of items in these catalogs, right? And so companies like Axion have to manually process these price updates into their backend systems, right? And so what we do is streamline that and actually integrate the supply houses with the contractor, so that as they update things. The other thing for the suppliers is we automate creation of sales catalogs. So oftentimes suppliers are still building sales catalogs in Excel, 18,000 items built in Excel. And it's, and so we can do things like that. So that's on the supplier side. On the GC side, one of the things that comes to mind is, kind of goes back to what I was talking about with business rules. In some cases, you can almost break down business rules for takeoffs by GC, because they're either using certain engineering firms or certain architects, and the way they put together the drawings, right, actually sort of play out in how you do the takeoffs and the things that you look for. So that's one thing that I think with the SOP, we can really dial that in. Yeah, so those are a couple things come to mind.
Yeah, great feedback, Chris, especially on the supplier catalog piece. I like that is becoming more and more of a bottleneck for more and more people on a regular basis. So I sense that is that's ripe for automation, you know, as we go forward over the next 6 to 12 months for sure.
Sure.
Awesome. Great feedback here. All right, let's go to our second and final poll here. We'll go ahead and pull that up. We'd love for you to participate in it. Question is, what's the biggest reason you've lost bids in the last 12 months? So we've got a couple different multiple choice here. You can do incomplete takeoffs, pricing errors or gaps, missed deadlines, poor proposal format or proposal offering, and then price is too high as well. So again, what's the biggest reason you've lost bids in the last 12 months? Incomplete takeoffs, pricing errors or gaps, missed deadlines, poor proposal format, or price too high? We'll give you a couple seconds to answer that. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat below. We'll get to our Q&A here with our panelists here in about 5 to 10 minutes. Make sure to answer as many of those as we can. Okay, let's take a look at the results and see what we have on the poll answer here. Okay, everybody's going price is too high. Nice. I would say maybe a symptom of that might be one of the four above it as well. But price is too high, making sure that have an accurate takeoff, a production reviewed estimate, all key to making sure you're dialed in on your scope of work and your proposal. Thanks for participating in that. Really appreciate that. All right, let's begin to wrap up here. You know, Peter, would love to come to you, and then Chris, and then Shikhar, kind of in that order. But let's talk about, you know, the road ahead. So zooming out a bit, you know, if you had to make a systematic recommendations to the subcontractor world looking to double their efficiency and bid output in 2025 and as we go into 2026, what would be some of your recommendations there, Peter, on your side?
Well, I think we covered what, like you said before, I'm the field guy and a worker. So my outlook is running my businesses to be more efficient, spend more time with your customers. Relationships are what generates our income. And so by having technology, AI is a huge plus of getting people, our estimator sales, out shaking hands again, where the last few decades, it kind of, everyone's just, it's all, again, it's technology, you text messaging, you end up not seeing your customers for 2 years at a time because you're so busy. And now let's freeing up some time, get some lunches, get some golf, or whatever it be. I think that's huge, whether if you're a small contractor or a large contractor.
Yeah, well said there, Peter. I go back, like there's fundamentals, right? Like returning a phone call same day, sending an email within, you know, 12 hours of receiving it, and meeting people in person. I can tell you, like, you know, I spent 20 years in the trades, 3 years in technology so far, and I've never spent more time meeting with customers in person and chatting with them in person. So I think it's very, very fun to think that's never going to go to out of style, no matter how much AI we actually inject into the process. So well said there. Chris, how about you? Any recommendations on, you know, a lot of our customer base is subcontractors here at Beam AI, and I know you work a lot with subcontractors. Any recommendations from the technology purview from your side?
Yeah, if I zoom out, like open the aperture pretty wide, I would say that from what I've read, like there's some estimates that like 90% of construction companies are underinvested in technology, which really results in inefficiencies and lost opportunity, right? And that's the reason why I got into technology solutions in construction industry was precisely because of this, because That was my business opportunity. There's a gap in construction companies being underinvested. Okay. But now that we look at with AI solutions, whether they're for takeoffs or leveraging AI across different business processes, I think it's going to start to gain traction. And I think % of companies will have some form of AI implemented by the year 2030, right? And so that's sort of the impetus to like, let's get moving ahead. But by doing so, as we already kind of talked about, these organizations need to rethink how they're organized, right? And the tasks that people do, how work gets done, because AI assisted is just that. It's just an assistant. It's not, and really requires human in the loop. People need to be guiding work. I think that's the future of where we can leverage AI and automation is more from, employees guiding how work gets done, reviewing it for quality, that type of thing. And so I think, over time, as this gets adopted, AI gets adopted across the construction industry, I think they'll see that, as Shrikar said, roles aren't going to entirely go away. How the things that they do on a day-to-day basis will change, right? And so I think it's important for, construction owners, leadership, just to understand that if you're going to adopt something like this, to adopt a change mindset, the change comes from the top early on, because, adopting technology in the field, I mean, getting a foreman that's been doing the, paper work orders for years to now use a tablet or their iPhone takes leadership from people at the top, not from the technology provider. And that's not just, hey guys, we have a new process, use it. It's reinforcing it through team when they're having their company meetings, okay, who isn't using the work order system, right? And going back out and seeing what they need and getting retrained. So I know I said a lot there, but that's really what I see. I think at the top level, there's been a history of underinvestment in technology and construction. There's an opportunity here really to make a huge difference, either from a growth mindset, that abundance mindset that you said, or from, just trying to be more efficient.
Yeah, I think that last point, Chris, ties it all together in a nice bow. Like that leadership piece is so important. I'm in Toronto today and tomorrow, and I met with a customer this morning in person, and we sat and talked, and I was sitting there talking to the owner, and we were looking at some key metrics of their onboarding, with Beam AI specifically, and they were representative of 66% of the throughput in the software as the owner and as the leader. And they have estimators, right? And they have field personnel, and they have other individuals. But I mean, that was one thing that and adoption is not an issue. Like, whatever it be, whether it's Beam AI or some other piece of technology, when you have a leader leading from the front like that, a lot of times the team has no choice but to follow and absorb the adoption and move forward. So I think that's a very valid point that we shouldn't take lightly. Thank you for that. Appreciate that, Chris. Shikhar, you want to round us out on some of the recommendations side from your end?
Sure thing. I'll just double down on what Chris said there. Making the decision to buy an AI-based software is just halfway there. I think getting your team, each and every member, to adopt and use the software the day in, day out, I think that is equally important, because that's where we see drop-offs happen. That's where you either become complacent or you haven't thought through the entire workflow, and that's why the wheels come off. So I would say double down on that when you're making the decision to purchase an AI software. Think about a scalable workflow. That how will the data from the AI platform integrate into your process from A to Z. And I think making the right selection of the AI platform is very important, because you don't want to you want a platform that fits into your workflow. You don't want something that disrupts your workflow and you have to re-engineer your entire workflow, because that is a painful process that slows things down across the board, and you might you might make a decision to not go ahead at all. So I think choose the AI platform that is customizable, that fits into your workflow. Number two, ensure make a decision keeping the end in mind, that how is my entire process going to look like when I buy when I buy subscription to this AI platform. I think that is a very important decision to keep in mind when you are when you're making a purchase decision. In addition to that, I would recommend that contractors need to make a deliberate decision to adopt AI early, and not this should be like a habit, and you want to build that habit before the demand spikes. You don't want to buy a platform when you're in the peak bidding season. No, you want to buy it before that so that you can train and you understand how it works, and what it can do and cannot do, and what's your role going to look like when you buy that piece of software. So invest early, start small, invest early, iterate, make sure that the platform is able to adapt and fit into your workflow. That is what will make you resilient. That's how you'll be able to, as a consumer of AI products, you'll be able to get the maximum ROI out of it. And lastly, I would highly recommend that we need to start um, um, officially recognizing that an estimator is not a takeoff engine, but you are now a strategic bid manager. That role has got to change. You should not be spending 80% of your time doing takeoffs. Instead, you shift towards pricing better, towards value engineering, towards positioning your company uh, as a valuable partner to your GC, to the project owner, because that is the next level now. That's where the frontier is being pushed. Now everyone's going to do a takeoff. The way you differentiate yourself from the other guy is through this value addition. So I think that's the pull factor. I think that should be a key pull factor in your mind, because otherwise there's low motivation to make a move, and there's a tendency to keep the status quo. So those would be my three recommendations.
Yeah, it's great recommendations there, Shikhar. And I would say, what I'm hearing is start small. I view like your technology journey and your AI journey, like take small steps in a never-ending journey. I think I go back to that, that word that Chris used, culture. You don't think that would be a super important word in a technology conversation or in an AI conversation, but like if you need a culture inside your business where they feel like change is always happening and always occurring and they need to be comfortable with it, because that's what the technology side of things is going to demand in order to get better. So I think I talk to a lot of contractors that think they have to, it's all or nothing, right? We have to go 100% in or 0% in. And I would say that's not how people successfully implement Beam AI. That's where my knowledge base is on the technology side. They start small, they test it, they iterate on it, and then the relationship grows from there. The efficiencies grow from there. So I think if you're sitting as an attendee out there today, and you're listening to Peter and Chris and Shikhar talk, I think a key learning here today is to make sure that you can start small, you can test it, you can iterate it, and just make that part of your culture, that's who you are and that's what you do. Because I can tell you're going to be way farther ahead taking 3 or 4 small steps than a lot of the contractors that are out there that are sitting on their hands because they don't know what to do, so they really don't do anything. So great advice there. Awesome. All right, let's move in. We've got about 8 minutes left in our time, and I'm sure we'll use it up. So let's get into our Q&A side of things as well. So let's go to a couple of these questions. Peter, I think I'm going to come to you on this one because you went through this process. The question is, how do you vet new tools or vendors before adding them to your pre-con stack? So, specifically to Axion's experience on bringing on any technology or Beam technology. Question was, how do you vet new tools or vendors before adding them to your pre-con stack, aside from actually implementing, having Chris help you out on it, essentially?
So I didn't want to interrupt you guys, but there's like when Chris was talking, it reminded me of a conversation we had with tablets and the timekeeping. And my timekeeper, been doing it for 30 years. She's all against it, negative. About 2 weeks in, we did some dry runs, and and Chris works with you. There's a couple of little hiccups, but by the time we turned it over, it was 2 weeks time, maybe 3 weeks. She sent us both an email saying, "I was wrong. I have so much more time." She used to do everything, spreadsheets, cross references. We run multiple jobs. My guys move from, they could be on Binney Street on Monday, and then could be down on Newport Street the next day. So they're bouncing around, some of them. Because we're a service company as well as a contractor, just doing straight contract work. But so that was a huge, I would say, a feather in Chris's cap, but it was. It really made her life easier. Getting some of the guys to adjust was a struggle with it, but they're all enjoy it now. And then you were mentioning a minute ago, we started AI, and we actually grabbed some of the jobs that we'd already taken off, and we ran through it, and just to see where it lined up with that one of our estimates took off. And what we found on a couple of them is there's still human error that you have to be concerned about. And we run a bad job, we run a good job. And the bad job that we unfortunately got was there was some stuff missed. AI doesn't get a phone call from the wife or has a bad day. It runs it the way you put it into the system. So that's a huge plus when it takes the human error out. I think that's to me is one of the bigger parts of it. So, and we did start small, and we're still growing. We're only doing a handful at a time, getting used to it, but it's been nice.
Yeah, no, that's great. Just you sharing that story about the timekeeping piece, Peter, I think that's good, because I've heard so many stories about, right, you've got somebody that is dead set against it, but once you get to the other side of the bridge, they're thankful, that the change was made, and they were able to get some time back. That's great. Appreciate you sharing that. Shikhar, I think I might come to you with this one next, specific to a product question. Can you work with precast panels specifically?
Oh, yes. Yes, we are able to work with precast panels. There are a bunch of concrete and rebar and civil contractors that we work with who specialize in such kind of work. So absolutely, please feel free to reach out to us. You can scan this code to set up a demo with us, or reach out to us, and we'll be happy to set up a trial for you. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's great. Appreciate that. Chris, we have a question here from a smaller subcontractor. Would like to come to you on this one. We're a smaller subcontractor with limited resources. What's the best way to get started with the AI takeoff process without overwhelming our team? Any recommendations there? I know this is a big concern for a lot of leaders out there. It's just a lot of it's the change management, and that so many people have so many things on their plate.
Yeah, I think this first thing is just take the first step, right? Get started, which means learn more about it, get on a demo call, learn more about it. Start small, right? You don't have to think you're going to, have AI do all of your takeoff volume in the first month, the second month, give it a year. If that's really what your objective is, and then that way you're not overwhelming your staff and your teams. You're just taking it step by step, learning as you go. If I'm participating, like helping on a periodic basis, understand where they're at in the change, recommending what they should do next, because a lot of times they don't know, like really adopting the change. Sometimes they're going through the pace, they're using the tool, but really they haven't fully adopted it. And so my job in that is really recommending their next steps. So take it slow, use a change agent, and it'll all be okay.
Awesome. Very comforting words there, Chris. I appreciate that. Shikhar, maybe come to you with this last question on ROI before we look to close. What kind of ROI are you seeing from Beam AI users in their, call it their first 6 months? Is there a learning curve with the software essentially? Would love to just get your feedback on this before we close out.
Absolutely. First part of the question about the ROI within the first 6 months. In fact, within the first couple of months, we've seen a lot of our customers being able to ramp up their bid throughput by about 20 to 30%. If you'd like to read some case studies, they are linked on our website. So I think in terms of ROI, you're spending about 1/4 to 1/5 of what it would take you to get that marginal takeoff done completely by an estimator. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the ROI, you're looking at a 4x to 5x ROI for every dollar spent, and then and that only continues to grow as we've seen with our customers. I think coming to the second part of your question, which is the learning curve, closely linked to the first part of the question, because BeamAI platform is really easy to operate. The reason being, as I said in one of my previous answers as well, that when you choose an AI product, you need to ensure that it fits into your workflow without causing any disruptions. That's how BeamAI is structured. You are able to customize how the data comes out from the platform so that you're able to build estimates off of that data. And because of that, you don't need to make a lot of changes in there. The standard operating procedure is aligned that, hey, this is how I take off using, I do my takeoffs. We are able to make such tweaks in the AI itself so that you don't have to worry about that. And after some fine tuning that Peter talked about, you are good to go. So in about 2 to 3 months, you're able to see a bump in the number of bids. As you begin to trust the system more, you're able to send out more bids. And learning curve is pretty. I would say it's a modest learning curve because the AI learns how the takeoff needs to be delivered. So you don't have to change a lot of things at your end. The process remains largely as is for you.
Yeah, great feedback there, Shikhar. I really appreciate that. That brings us to the end of our discussion. We're actually a minute over, so I'll be brief here as we wrap up. A huge thank you to our panelists, Chris, Peter, and Shikhar. Thank you for sharing your insights, pouring into the industry. I think you all achieved your goal, or our goal today was to make technology approachable. And by sharing your experiences and your different wisdom and angles of approach there, I think you've done that today. You just making it more approachable for the wider industry. So thank you very much for that. For those of you looking to increase bid velocity without increasing headcount, AI-based takeoffs with Beam could be the right solution for you. You can book a personalized demo with us, or you can visit our website to watch past sessions of this actual BuildUp series. If we jump back real quick to that previous slide there, would love for us to be able to give Chris a shout out. Chris Palmer is the founder and CEO of TradeTech, one of our valued partners here. If you'd love to reach out to Chris, you need some support, you don't know what you're doing on the technology side, and you need somebody to guide you, please scan that QR code, reach out to Chris. I can attest he can help you in an immense fashion. So thank you for that. Before we go, we'd love your feedback. We'll have a short survey will pop up once you exit the session here today. Let us know your thoughts on this webinar and what topics you'd like us to cover next. So thank you again for joining us. We'll see you at the next BuildUp series. I hope everybody has a great day.